worst fishing advice anyone's ever, boy, I've had tons of worst advice. Oh.
That's deep. I don't know. I've gotten so much terrible fishing advice. That one's hard to decipher.
I've probably given it to somebody. That might be a better question. What's the worst fishing advice I've given?
I guess the worst fishing advice I would have to say anyone has ever given me is, you don't need all that fancy new equipment to catch bass. You totally do. You got to keep up with the times. Times are changing. So that is the worst advice. You've got to stay with the hottest trends, the new graphs, the new rods, the new reels, the new baits.
The worst fishing advice would be the advice I get every week from my wife. I love you, I love her to death, but it's always just random and it makes no difference. She just hears stuff on Facebook and, did you check the moon? Are the sea levels rising?
Yeah, that's really easy. The worst fishing advice anybody has ever given me is they're biting over here. Like, because if they were biting over there, or if there's a certain part of the lake that's hot, it probably was a week ago, and guess what? It's always over. So that's the worst fishing advice, is just listening to dog talk.
The worst fishing advice anyone's ever given me. I had a guy one time tell me, never fish in the rain. The rain distracts the fish. And that's wrong.
So like, you know, some guys say, oh, I'm not, you know, the tournament ends at 3 o'clock. I'm not gonna practice anytime after 3. That's just horrible advice, because it's all about finding the fish. If I find them right at dark or dusk, they're probably still gonna be there during those tournament hours. So that's just horrible advice.
When I first started professionally fishing, you know, a good common thing that people would tell you is fish your strengths. But if you just fished your strengths doing what I do, just fishing across the country all the time, if you don't get kind of out of your comfort zone and learn new stuff and become a versatile angler, you probably won't be very consistent.
Dude, you can kill them on anything you throw. That's the worst fishing advice I've ever got. That's never the truth.
And I had a guy tell me, and I was young and kind of dumb. The first time he said, man, when you get in those big waves, you just got to run harder and get up on top of them. That's not the deal. Don't pick up speed and get on top of them. Promise you.
One thing you hear the most is just slow down. Like that. That's something you hear a lot. If you're not catching anything, people say, oh, you just need to slow down. Well, sometimes that's the worst thing you can do. You slow down and you're not catching them, and it's like you're going in slow motion, and you just really start to think too much.
It doesn't matter how many split shots you put on your line. I know it sounds crazy, but when I was a little kid and I started fishing, knew nothing about it, I had an older guy just tell me, just put like 5 or 6 of them split shots on your line, and I just put them all over. And it wasn't like specific, you know, to weight your bait to let it go down. So I think I made like a massive lure out of split shots. It was fun to put on, but it absolutely achieved nothing.
Back when I was in my early 20s and I had a dream of becoming a professional bass fisherman, and he told me not to do it. He said the odds are so astronomically stacked against you that the chances of you ever being successful at it are 0. And he said, drop the dream right now, go get a real job and just fish for fun. And I'm so glad I ignored that advice.
It ain't really as far as fishing advice, I would say, but the worst thing I hear people say that gets on my nerves is that you have to be a rich man to get to be a professional fisherman to get started in it. That's something that irks me every time I hear that, because I know all of my buddies and myself, you know, we kind of come from, you know, pretty much nothing and made it. So when I hear somebody say, oh, you got to have money to fish, that is absolutely not the truth.